You all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll mark the meeting open at 7:03 p.m. Okay, first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? There no public comment. We will close public comment. We'll move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes from the December 17, 2014 meeting. Do I have a motion to do so?
Second.
Motion by Len, second by Karen. Is there any discussion? Changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes 5-0-1, and please note Paul's abstention. Item number 6 is First Selectmen's report. Obviously, there wasn't much that's gone on in the last 2 weeks, so my report is going to be very short. I just want to let everybody know that the comprehensive annual audit is done and in. Anyone who would wish a copy to read, let Rory know, and we'll arrange to get copies to you. A couple things I did want to go over. I had a chance to quickly review it before it went to its final stages. Everything is as we had expected. There were 2 deficiencies that were brought up. Those have already been corrected. One, to be quite honest, has nothing to do with our finance department. It's more in a way that we account for some liabilities. That's just an auditing procedure. With the switch of auditors, they want it done differently. So, but nothing of any concern. The biggest thing I'd like to point out, though, is we did increase our fund balance again. We had a surplus of $219,355. That brings our surplus up to $4,611,309, which is 8.48%. So we're getting closer and closer to the 10% that we have achieved or established as a goal. I did put my preliminary budget together. It's just in the final phases of being checked by Doug to make sure that there's no errors with the spreadsheet and things like that. My goal this year is to present a budget of 0, which I currently have. With that budget of 0, I'm going to present also a list of initiatives on not only the town side but the Board of Education side. On the town side, I'm presenting $549,000 worth of initiatives. The vast majority of that is $110,000 in additional public works equipment, $250,000 for new road work, and then $80,000 for road repair, potholes and things like we had talked about within our plan. So if the Board of Finance accepts my 0 budget, the town can function without problem. I'm going to stress to them that they strive to have the mill rate be as low as possible. One thing I want to keep in mind with my budget as I've presented these expenses, there is still a $382,576 estimate of revenue over expenses. So we could potentially even drop the mill rate by about 1/3 of a mil if they decide not to follow any initiatives. So we'll see how that goes. I plan to present last to the Board of Finance again this year, which will be some point in February, but I'll keep you updated on that as we go. I'll also be back to this board with capital. I would expect sometime end of February, beginning of March. With that, we will close First Selectmen's report. Item number 6, discussion with our Economic Development Director. Fred is not here yet, so we will move past that. Fred is down the hall with the Economic Development meeting, so he'll be with us momentarily. Can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Motion by Len, second by Anne Marie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is item number 7. Discussion, take possible action on Seymour Fire Department surplus equipment. Okay, last meeting, we surplus 2 pieces of apparatus from the fire department, which is truck number 10 and truck number 18, I do believe. You have that information. We also had a request from Emergency Management to make use of one of the trucks, which is the 1979 Dodge Salisbury front mount 4-wheel drive, which I believe is number 18. That is correct. Okay, Rich, could you go through the board, the process, because I had Rich pull the ordinances. just to make sure there was no confusion, because our ordinance is not the clearest thing going. So, Rich?
2-281 of the Seymour Town Code sets forth the process and procedures for dealing with surplus property that is going to be disposed of. In the first instance, there has to be a determination made as to the value. If it's less than 200, advertising shall consist of notice on the town bulletin board. If it's more than 200, you advertise in a paper of general circulation. If you're going to dispose of it in that manner. And then you have sealed bids. The valuation is set by the department head in consultation with the first selectman. If other departments desire to purchase or acquire the property, a department could purchase it. Or the first selectman, in his sole and absolute discretion, may transfer the property to any department without payment. So that was called back on.
Okay.
Those are procedures. And that's 2-285 of the Seymour Town Code.
Okay. So is that on me or the entire board?
That is, you.
Okay.
First selectman.
Okay, now, if we choose not to surplus it, or excuse me, it's already been surplus, but if we choose not to give it to another department and we put it out for bid, where is the bulletin board?
Good question. If it's under $200, I don't know if you're.
Yeah, no, okay, so it's not
$200,
gonna
I doubt that. So you're gonna be, running ads like you normally would and taking bids.
Okay. All right, now we have, thank you, Rich. Okay, so we have the letter from Emergency Management. I know people had some questions. Emergency Management Director was not at the last meeting, so he's here tonight. So, who has questions?
I believe I posed the last question after I moved the table last meeting with regard to the cost of usage and maintenance. Spoke to the emergency management director before the meeting, and those numbers are not prepared yet. So it may make sense to hold off on this at this point,
Okay,
at least in my mind.
okay. Any additional questions, operational or anything, that we want to ask? Is everybody comfortable with tabling it till we get
Yes.
the numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion to table.
So moved.
Motion by Len, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Sorry, boys. Like to entertain a motion to go out of order, to go back to item number 6, discussion with Economic Development Director Fred Masori.
So moved.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Len. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda, item number 6, discussion with Economic Development Director Fred Masori. Fred, the floor is yours. Would you mind talking into the microphone?
Sure. I apologize. I apologize, I was at the Economic Development Commission meeting.
Do you make sure that's on?
The song is on. Doesn't sound like it's
Yeah.
Nope.
No? Batteries might be dead. That's all right, Fred, just go ahead and talk. Yeah. So, yeah, talk about
You can borrow mine if you want.
Turn your mic.
You want to just sit at the table?
No, just the mic's will pick you up.
Okay.
Just your mic should. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was at the Economic Development Commission meeting, and there was some public input that I had to just comment on, so I apologize. So, I don't know if you wanted to ask me some questions regarding my quarterly report, or specifically, or if you wanted me to just go through it, whatever is the most efficient way, because I know there is a time.
Why don't you give a little quick update, and then you can take some questions after that.
Okay. Basically, the last quarter, we had 3 goals that we were looking to accomplish from the third quarter, which we were successful in achieving in all 3. The first one was to implement or move the Greenway Trail, the master plan for the Greenway Trail, forward. As mentioned back in the third quarter, we were successful with presenting this project to VCOG and allocating some funding, transportation funding, grant funding, and moving this project in line to be the recipient of that. As part of that project, the town has to commit 20% of the overall construction and the design fees. So we began the process with my loan and approval to amend the contract that we had to put together the feasibility of the project. We now put together a design plan. We're in the final stages of that contract, reviewed by our corporation council, and then will be presented to the Board of Selectmen for approval, I'm hoping within the next 30 days or so. Once that is executed, we will then start the process of the designing of phase 1 of the trail, which will bring you along the Route 8 connector all the way to 67 from the Fish Bypass Channel, which just recently completed. The estimated cost is anywhere between $650,000 to $800,000 right now for that stretch of phase 1. The second goal that we achieved, which was to get the final zoning approval for the purchase of the 29 Maple Street property, the former Crusty School. We finalized the contract back over the summer, and there was some due diligence that had to be done by the developer. And as part of the purchase and sales agreement, they had to get off approvals for a market rate apartment building conversion, readaptive use. And back in mid-December, they received approvals for 42 units. So we're hoping to get the closing of that property sometime in the first quarter of this year.
Greg, could you tell them a little bit too about our meeting from this morning?
Oh, sure.
That's okay.
Seymour Lumber was also a hot topic for the third quarter about getting that project down. So happy to say that that project obviously occurred. We worked closely with the property owners to get the permitting to go ahead and do the demolition. And I'm happy to say there was some back taxes that were paid in full on that project, so that was important part of the steps. And now the realtor is marketing the property as a clear site, and I know that there's been some activity on that. So we're hoping to see some proposals come to the town in, sometime in 2015. The Adopt-A-Spot signs were finally, first off, just to back up, to give you the history, we did have a previous vendor that was hired to start the project, and unfortunately there was an issue that came up. They were not able to perform per the contract. We then had to basically call the bond, and we were successful in receiving monies back on that project. We then went out to a bid to another sign company. They finalized the design, and we started doing the installation of the Adopt-A-Spot signs, which you see throughout the town. Now, don't be discouraged that you may not see the placards in place right now. We felt because this was delayed for 2 years, over 2 years, this project, we wanted to get the signs installed prior to the frost season. But the signs are basically all spoken for. The process of identifying who the sponsors would be was pretty simple. We went to the existing sponsors that were already in the locations that were there and asked if they wanted to renew their sponsorship. As part of that sponsorship, they have to not just maintain the area, but they have to pay for their placard and design for that placard and installation. And basically, I believe there was only 1 or 2 contracts that were not renewed. And then we had a list of interested businesses in town that wanted to take an Adopt-A-Spot location, so I reached out to them, and they accepted it, and they were next in line. So that project is finally, I would say, close to being complete. The signs are installed, and you're going to see the placards being installed through the winter. But that doesn't really affect the weather because you don't have to go into the ground if that's part of the sign. So, this morning, we had a meeting with CERC. Now the big question is, we have these cleared sites downtown, what do we do with them? I think, most importantly, we should try to look at the market trends and see, and forecasting for the market, and see what kind of in this area, the businesses that may want to be interested in the property that's located right off of Route 8 with our demographics. So we met with representatives from CERC, which is the Connecticut Economic Resource Center. They're a subsidized state agency who handles data collection and marketing of commercial sites in the state. They also do recruiting of businesses for the state. If there's a business that the state is looking to try to attract to Connecticut, they do the initial reaching out. So they have various departments and divisions internally. They're also subsidized from some of the utility companies in the state. But they also provide services to municipalities, if you're a member, which we are, in good standing order, to basically perform analysis of various projects. So in this case, we wanted to sit down and discuss 3 specific areas of town, but also the town globally. We wanted to look at the Derby Avenue corridor up to Tri-Town. We wanted to look at the properties here in downtown, meaning Housatonic Wire and Seymour Lumber Site, the former Seymour Lumber Site, and then the land that's 200 acres plus behind Stop and Shop that connects to Beacon Falls. So those are the 3 areas that we wanted to see if we could put together an analysis of forecasting and what their recommendations are. So we're going to be receiving a proposal from them to do this analysis for the town. It will be performed over probably 30 to 90 days once the contract is executed, and in that process there'll be some outreaching by the firm with the general public, the business groups, and people from outside the area to come back and make recommendations. They'll also provide a presentation to all the different development, land use, internal municipality departments, just to make sure that one department is kind of on the same page with the other. You know, there are times that there's proposals that might be just to inland wetlands, and the zoning board of appeals has no idea of it, and the sewer commission doesn't know about it. And this is all part of the kind of larger scope of economic development. So we want to have that kind of interaction with the different departments, and they are going to facilitate this. And I think we've had a lot of successes over the last couple of years to kind of show the direction the town's been going in, and, you know, with the completion of the fish bypass, the potential sale of the Preston School, the Henny Penny site getting developed, the downtown plan being implemented, the Greenway Trail being approved, award-winning Greenway Trail by the state. So it's been recognized not just in town but outside. So there's a lot of good discussions of Seymour, and hopefully going forward, this more recent planning that we're going to be doing will help discuss what we can look at possibly down the future. This forecasting also enables us to possibly relook at our zoning regulations to make sure they're consistent to what today's market would stand. And if there needs to be some updating on that aspect, it'll start that dialogue. So that's the other benefit that they can offer. As we move along with this process, the representatives could discuss a little more details on what they're handling. But that's what we did today. I did speak Tri-Town. The good news, Tri-Town has finally hired a professional commercial real estate firm to help the marketing of the site. We're very happy to have that. I think I've announced that at every report when they ask me about Tri-Town, and I mentioned that. Without having someone marketing the site, it makes it difficult. Yes, I do go to New York, and I did go in December again to promote the site, but I was happy to see a real firm, you know, a professional firm handling that, because that's the type of attention that that site needs. Obviously, in any way that the town can assist, I'm there. We have our tax incentive. A lot of times that doesn't come into play with retail development, but it could be potentially offered to them if needed. So we're pretty excited about having that dialogue. I know the firm very well. I've worked with them on some other projects in my other capacity as Senior Vice President of Colonial Property. So I look forward to working with them and bringing a successful final solution to some of the vacancies in the valley. So unless there's any other questions, I don't want to, because I could easily go on and on. I don't want to
Yeah, we put Fred on a time limit this time, so he
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
give us the 45
So I
minute
tried to cover some of the key
thesis
points.
statement he
but-
gave us last time. But anybody have any questions, Lynn?
Yeah, Fred, I was wondering if you could just kind of elaborate what's going on with Housatonic Wire. I understand that there's an issue with the state grant that was awarded to the property.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the meeting was a little bit about at the Economic Development Commission, the property owners down there. So there was a grant that my office applied for, and we were successful in receiving a brownfields grant for $500,000, and that will be given to a bona fide developer for the site to do remediation. And we thought that that would help once the buildings came down, and that was through the hard effort and work started with Paul Roy, a former Selectmen, to receive a $200,000 loan to help get the structures down after the fire occurred. But once the buildings were down, how else can we move forward? So there was a lawsuit with the insurance company and how the fire got started, so that kind of delayed the process. But in the meantime, the town went forward, got this grant, and was trying to help facilitate the sale of the property. They did hire a firm to handle the marketing of that, a real estate firm. We provided the information about the grant to them, and they've been marketing ever since. There was a time frame that that money needed to be utilized, and the state called us to say, if the money is not utilized, we're going to remove it from Seymour. We were very concerned on that. At that time, quite honestly, I was looking at other alternatives if I could not use it for that project because it just didn't have that bona fide developer. We were considering possibly reallocating that to the Seymour lumber site to get the structures down if I needed it. And that's something that there was some initial discussion. I just didn't want to see it lose the town of Seymour, obviously. But we just didn't have that many other projects that needed remediation that I could easily transfer to. That's fortunate for us. I know through Teresa Conroy and this administration, we worked with the Brownfields Department to extend the grant. We met with them back in March with the property owner. At that time, there was some direction by the grants coordinator on what he wanted to see done by the property owner, which was questioned at the Economic Development Commission meeting. But and the monies right now has been continued and extended, but I just don't know how long that we can keep extending it because there's other projects in the state they want to reallocate the monies towards.
I guess the follow-up question is there anything we can do as a town to make sure we don't lose that money? Is it
You know, it's
on the
really
property owner?
allocated to the town specifically for that project, you know, and I'd love to use it. I mean, and I've emphasized that to the property owner and their representation tonight at the meeting, that we want to use it. That's what it was for. And just hopefully they can get that developer. I think one of the things we could be doing, and that's one of the things we were meeting with today regarding the CERT presentation, is that I'd like to also try to be proactive in coming up with maybe an idea of what we'd like to see happen with those sites. I would prefer to see the sites stay together if possible and develop together. That's consistent to a transit-oriented development plan of mixed-use development. I'm not saying that that's what it, you know,
Sure.
100% what it has to be. Ideally, that's what I'd like to do, but we don't control the sites, so it's a little difficult to dictate that. So, but again, I think working with good planning to say this is what could be done, or if our regulations need to be adjusted to support that type of development, I think those are the things the town could be proactive in doing.
The bottom line is there's nothing really we can do to facilitate this anymore.
You know,
It's pretty much gone.
unless there's a developer that's in tow with an agreement with the property owner, you know, something in writing that we could work with and buy some time. It's very difficult. You know, we did meet with one developer who wanted to do just residential for the site back in March, and you know, quite honestly, my discussions with various residents and town officials and departments, it seemed that we want to be consistent with a mixed-use development at that site if possible. I did recommend that, you know, we would prefer that, but I didn't discourage a proposal. But, you know, commercial real estate is very complicated. It's not just as saying, well, I have an idea and we can get it done. There's financial obligations that have to be met, thresholds that have to be met, if there is a market for that. So, I would hope, you know, we could assist the property owner in any way. I know there was some discussion about doing some environmental assessment. If we could get further funding, you know, going by the brownfields coordinator, I felt pretty comfortable coming out of that meeting back in March that they wanted to see some skin in the game by the property owner if they wanted to get this grant. I mean, that's what was said, point blank. Put some of your money in to do the assessment of the environment. I don't know if that'll help facilitate bringing a developer, because I'm not intimately involved with the transaction enough to tell you that if someone came to the table saying, I'm not gonna go forward on this project unless you do the environmental assessment. If someone wrote that down in a real bona fide offer and brought that to me, then we can have other discussions from that point, but I haven't seen anything in that, in writing, so.
And has the property owner?
You know, the town has done a job up to this point of helping facilitate a $200,000 loan. That, at the time that that loan was given, there was some misuse, of misappropriation of the funding, that we had to go back to the state to clarify and question with the property owner. That didn't help out the case also. And then we did get the $500,000, and quite honest with you, we're doing other things around the surrounding area of that project to help promote the development of it. I think with the fish bypass channel being completed, and now the Greenway Trail, these are amenities that are gonna be making it more attractive. And also, we approved the tax incentive package. I mean, we did a downtown plan of development. You know, these are all really good things in a very short time frame.
For the record, in your opinion, we've done everything we can.
I feel pretty confident. Karen?
I have a couple of questions.
Fire away.
First of all, about Seymour Lumber. I was told, and I'd like you to tell me if this is true or not, that the state of Connecticut is afraid that Route 67 will collapse if they take out the foundation.
That's not entirely true.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
Okay, so, at one time, there was some interest by a retail development.
I know that.
Developer development, entity, that the real estate agent contacted my office and needed some assistance on how we could handle the structure coming down, because that was kind of
Yeah, I
an
know,
issue.
yeah, I know that.
At that time, I facilitated a meeting with the Department of Transportation Soil Department, and they came out, we toured the site, and the recommendation was to do the demolition, but currently leave those foundations up until it gets redeveloped. But at that, there was no engineering work or nothing officially saying that they can't be removed.
So then, what I was
So-
told is not true.
I mean, I want to be very clear in saying, if this mic is on, 67 is safe to travel on and is not collapsing because of the demolition. That's what I can tell you.
Well,
at this
no,
time.
I'm not saying about the demolition. I'm
Yeah.
saying that I was told that if they tear out the cement,
I don't know, we didn't really do like a structural analysis of that, but it was just mentioned that if we're gonna do the demolition of the structure, you can leave, because they're right up against the property line.
Right,
To
right.
leave them in. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. I don't wanna say it's untrue, but no one's, you know, no one said that if it removes the roadway will collapse. It was just said, recommended to leave them in.
okay. Now, the other thing that I would like to ask you about is, my 7-year-old grandson came up the day after Christmas and said to me, Nana, the number one thing I want to do is see the fish bypass. It was all locked up. We couldn't get in. When is it being turned over?
Well, you know, I know at the dedication, there was talks that it would need a couple more weeks of work.
I thought they said December 15th.
Yeah, but I know that there's a winter schedule that it will be shut during the winter months anyway for maintenance of the contract between the town and the state. So I don't have an update on when, my understanding is that it probably will not be opened until the springtime, but I don't have the exact details other than that.
I mean, when the state, I can answer that question, when the state has completed its work, we'll close the park anyway, because the park is not open during the winter months.
Is it an insurance issue, or?
Yes.
It is, okay,
Because we don't have the equipment to maintain the steps.
okay,
And Public Works is concerned about ice and snow and how we handle that, and God forbid somebody slips down.
okay.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it would. as
I mean,
per
more
the
than
con-
likely, we'll probably close the stairs and leave the ramps.
All right, okay.
But once the state turns it over to us, I will work with our council on that, make sure that he's comfortable.
Okay.
I think I don't mean to keep, I think Fred and I are just as frustrated as you with this, because we had the grand opening, and as soon as everybody walked, they put the gates back up.
Yeah, it was
so-
disappointing
Yeah.
for him.
Yep, oh,
Um,
absolutely.
And the other thing
And
is,
plus, we have the charging station at the parking lot I want to see
I-
get utilized.
yes.
And that's also a nice addition that we were able to get in.
and the other thing, the other question I had, and I did not plan on asking this tonight, so the Rotary at Great Hill, by the Great Hill Methodist Church, what's the status? That's a $2 million project, I think?
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. Well, it's grossly overpriced.
Well, I agree with you, but Fred told me that he spoke with somebody at the state, and they said, well, if you don't want to get rid of the Rotary, we're going to take the money away.
I asked that question because I have a fundamental issue with spending that much money on a rotary. I think
Yes.
When it could be much better spent in other places, and the guy said, it's yes or no, and I said, if we say no, what happens? So we take the money and move on to the next project.
That's
So
what
if
they
the money's
said.
gonna be spent anyway, might as well spend it in Seymour.
Okay.
So I believe that's programmed for 2017, if I'm not mistaken. But then again, Rimmon Street was programmed for 2014? So, we'll see.
Wheels of government turn slowly.
Yeah, we'll
Eh,
see.
And my last question about Tri-Town Plaza. My son, 4 or 5 years ago, tried to negotiate a lease with the gentleman who owns Tri-Town Plaza, whose name I cannot remember.
Ron Spector?
Oh, okay,
Well, he owns the buildings, not the land.
okay. And the gentleman, according to my son, who's an attorney, the gentleman was very, very difficult to deal with. And my son was also told that there's a lot of structural damage because the buildings have been vacant for so long, that there's probably vermin in the building. And I was also told there's a problem with the roof where Ames used to be. Is that true?
I'm not a pest control specialist.
Or a structural engineer. You know that.
I just want to be very clear. But I can tell you through my inspection, I probably was through that property and the structures at least a year ago. Any building that stays empty, it makes it more difficult to obviously market, because there was different ventilations for different types of mechanics that weren't properly closed, and, you do have weather that does come in. Structurally, I'm not an engineer either to tell you that if it's at a point where it's falling down. I think the one thing I could say is that they're doing the best thing now, that they hired a professional firm to help market the site.
Well, I guess my question is really, if somebody has an interest
Yeah.
in leasing the property or even buying the property?
Yes. It's not for sale, I want to be very clear.
Okay,
The person that you're mentioning, they only have a long-term land lease for the property. They do not own the property. That's the other caveat that makes it very difficult to find tenants in there. I just want to be very, very clear on that, because if you own the property, you could possibly refinance it and reposition, take advantage of the loan.
Sure.
Lower rates right now, and maybe infuse that into the property to do other things with, and that's not the case.
but I think my curiosity is,
Yeah.
why would somebody want to go into that building knowing that up front there's so much work that needs to be done on the building?
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna have to be some negotiations on both sides that the landlord will have to do, meaning the tenant now is the landlord.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Property landlord, that's the tenant. They would have to come up with some agreement on, depending on the finances of the entire deal, on who does what. In some cases, the property, I don't know the best way to say it, the lessor would do some improvements to help get the building to a certain point of it, to then the tenant, lessee, would come in and do the final fit up. And again, that's all negotiated in
The contract, yeah.
contract, so. But again, I think the initial issue was that it wasn't having the intention of having someone market that property all the time. They had the property manager, company locally handling it, and I think it needs more.
And it was in court.
Yeah, so I think now that we have a firm that handles this type of development, I think it'll help at least get the site out there. I mean, besides my efforts and, so, and hopefully we can be successful in obtaining somebody.
Okay, thank you very much.
No?
Fred, what's the name of the firm that's handling Tri-Town now?
Atherton and Associates, they're out of Trumbull.
And I guess my follow-up question would be, what's your best guess as to when that property might see some new tenants in it? Now, do you think having a commercial firm now, well, it seems like you're excited that there's somebody actually
Well,
managing the property now that's a professional firm, so. I mean, I'm not gonna hold you to it, but, I mean, is there a light here at the end of the tunnel, or?
again, hiring a firm that handles the marketing of a site is a giant first step. I can't tell you exactly a timeframe. It's
So we
hard
don't
for
have
me to say.
anybody who's interested in it right now?
Not that I'm aware of. You know. I did reach out to the firm. I did see them in the New York show. I wasn't aware at that time that they had the listing on it, because I reached out to the majority of property owners that either had no representation to see if I could help market their property in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them responded, some of them did not. They were one to not respond to me, but I still brought a packet with me to see if there was any potential suitors. But since that time, and since returning, I did find out that the listing was executed, and I reached out. I told them about our incentive package, which they were aware of, and any help or assistance the town could offer, we'd be more than willing to do that. So. And that's the best I can do at this stage.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Paul, go ahead.
Just a couple of comments more than anything. First of all, I am glad to see that that's finally happening at Tri-Town, that first step, because I'm anxious to have a cup of coffee up there with somebody that, well, probably all the other first selectmen have gone through this with this property owner. I was called on that, and that's why I said that. But anyway, that's a good step. As far as the lumber and Houstonic wire site, I agree with you. A mixed-use development, in my mind, probably would be the best use of that property. We all know that the river and the waterfall is a beautiful site there, and could make the development, very attractive. And that's what I would hope that would go there as well. One of the other things, the Greenway, I'm glad we're moving forward with that. A lot of people looking forward to that. And obviously, at some point, we need to get some signage that the bypass is on here, get it on the highway. And Teresa's here now. That's good to see Teresa's here. But we need to get some signage for that, the fish bypass, because as you and I both know, that come May, the fish are going to start jumping up, up that bypass, and we want people to come to Seymour to see that happen.
Sure.
So,
we can stop, stay
yeah.
a while, spend some money.
Yeah, and they'll spend money
Buy some
downtown,
pizza.
right. But again, I'm glad these processes are moving forward. If there's any way I can help facilitate anything, I'd be glad to, with any of these folks. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Anne Marie, you want to finish it off, or are you good? No? Okay.
I think 30 minutes is long enough.
Thank you very much, Fred.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it, buddy. Okay. Item number 8, discussion, take possible action on dissolution of the Technology Committee. We're using those big words again, I have to make sure. Karen will pen me if I mispronounce.
I got it.
Yeah, I'll read the resolution, we'll go from there. Whereas the Board of Selectmen established the Seymour Technology Committee for a purpose of coordinating a redesign of the town website, and whereas the Technology Committee did successfully establish a new website design as well as implement other technological improvements, and whereas the Technology Committee has completed the task assigned to it, now therefore be it resolved that the Technology Committee is hereby dissolved. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to accept the resolution as read. Motion by Len, second by Al. Is there any discussion? And again, just as part of the discussion, as you know, we made the decision to have IT be more of a joint operation between the town and the Board of Education, so we will have professional guidance going forward in this area. So, there's no other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, discussion take possible action on the dissolution of the Energy Committee. And I'll read the next resolution. Whereas the Energy Committee was established for the purpose of coordinating an energy-related grant, and whereas the Energy Committee has performed all the tasks assigned to it, now therefore be it resolved that the Energy Committee is hereby dissolved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Al. Just under discussion, the Energy Committee will be replaced by the by the Standing Building Committee that was recommended by the 10-year Strategic Planning Committee. So we're in the process now of finding people.
That will, so they will take on the task that the Energy Committee had
Yes.
worked on. I mean, because I personally am sad to see this go, but if there is a replacement
Yeah.
or someone who's going to cover that,
Yes.
yeah,
The Standing Building
I
Committee.
just feel bad that we didn't have more people step forward to be on the committee and that we weren't able to fill up positions on that committee. I know there's quite a few communities in the state now that are, going solar, and they're doing this as a whole community, and I think that initiative is something that this should be passed on to that committee.
The-
I'd be interested in serving on the current
Yeah, the Building Committee will be, yes.
Energy Committee.
No, we're dissolving the Energy Committee.
Yeah, but what's the new one?
The Standing Building Committee.
So that's filled, right?
And we're filling it.
You're filling.
Yes.
First time?
Yes.
Because it's replacing the energy.
Yes.
Okay.
I know this
I
is
just
going
wanna
really,
make
I know this is
wanna
going really
make sure
fast for
I'm
you.
just clear on it, all right? Sounds good.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Okay, item number 10. The next, just as a little caveat to the next 4 items, essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce each of these, and I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen to officially move them to the Ordinance Committee. The Ordinance Committee will meet at some point in January to start the process. We'll put these together. We'll make reports back to the Board of Selectmen and follow the process under Rich's guidance. So with that, item number 10, discussion and take possible action on fire department ordinance change. As you know, at our last meeting, we received a letter from then Chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners, Gene Atkins, with regards to making a change to ordinance 6-22. And that ordinance, the department shall consist, or no, that was the proposed changes. So essentially what it has to do is with people outside of Seymour being members of the fire department. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to forward the request of the Board of Fire Commissioners regarding ordinance 6-22 onto the ordinance committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Len, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just have one question.
Sure.
Just for clarification, the department shall consist of not more than 200 persons. And is that 200 persons for each department, or is it 100 and 100, or total?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I confused it as 2 different firehouses, okay.
Thank you, Assistant Chief of Fire. Chief, anything you want to add while you're here? No? Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda, item number 11, discussion, take possible action on sidewalk ordinance change. In your packets, you should see a letter to myself from a town council. That is regarding section 14-6, removal of ice, snow from sidewalks. I think this is something that we should take a look at. Rory has done some research on this, has some recommendations and things, and I think this is something that's important with the winter season upon us that we take a quick look at this. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to forward the sidewalks ordinance change recommendations to the ordinance committee for review.
So moved.
Motion by Len, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item number 12, discussion take possible action on delinquent tax ordinance change. As well in your packet, you will see a letter from town council to our tax collector, Dana Flock, with regards to delinquent tax payment procedures. Again, we would like to forward this on to the ordinance committee for review. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to have that done.
So moved.
Motion by Len,
Second.
second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda, the last part of this section, is discussion, take possible action on the veterans' tax exemption. Again, we need to create an ordinance with regards to the veterans' tax exemption. Rory feels that he has most of the information we need. I was waiting for one last piece from the state, so we should be able to move this forward and have it ready to go by July 1st of 2015, which would certainly be a good thing. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to move the veterans' tax exemption forward to the ordinance committee.
So moved.
Motion by Len, second by Karen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item number 14, discussion, take possible action on 29 Maple Street tax abatement agreement. You should have the abatement, or the agreement, I should say, excuse me, in front of you. This is, as you remember, we started this process, it seems many moons ago. We came to somewhat of an agreement as to the tax exemption that we would provide to Primrose companies. They are at the point now where they've passed everything with planning and zoning. They are doing their final just checks and things. The expectation is, if all goes well, we potentially could be closing the end of January, the beginning of February. So we're definitely in the last few hurdles. Just want to go through really quickly. Again, as a reminder, they will be investing at minimum $3 million into the project, and that they are asking for a fixed assessment period, which would be on page 3, for those of you that have it out, covering 5 consecutive fiscal years, commencing with the fiscal year for the grand list of October 1st, 2014, which is this upcoming year. And their assessment will be fixed at $1 million. Now, Rich, do I need to read this entire resolution? Or agreement?
What we would need is a motion to, we just hit the high points on it. It's under 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statute, which gives the legislative body of the municipality the power and authority to fix an assessment for a fixed period of time, which is exactly what this agreement does, which was set forth in the purchase and sale contract, which this body authorized you to enter into, which you did, as did Primrose. You have the, so a motion would be in order to approve the tax assessment agreement and authorize you as first selectman to enter into it. That's the
A
motion.
point of order. Is it a motion in limine?
Motion in limine?
Yeah.
No, not a motion in limine.
Okay.
Translation?
Yeah.
Well, a motion in limine is like a motion to preclude, and you're not precluding, you're authorizing.
Right. I didn't understand what that word meant. Rory knew what it meant, but he would have told me in the morning.
We went to BC.
Latin scholar.
That's why Rory doesn't write speeches anymore. Okay, so, well, I guess we'll entertain a motion to approve the tax assessment agreement and to authorize me to sign as allowed by section 12-65B of the Connecticut General Statutes.
So moved.
Motion by Al.
Second.
Second by Karen. Is there any discussion?
Yep.
Go.
This is just, and this is only as long as they get their certificate of occupancy by January 31st, 2017?
That is correct. If you look on page, what would be page 4, there is some language in there. This was drafted by Brian Lima in Rich's office. There is section 3, completion deadline. There is some verbiage in there for that. So, yeah, there is some protection on that. I think, though, once this project starts, Primrose is very eager to get this going, and they will move forward very, very quickly. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Karen, good?
Good.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item number 16, discussion, take possible action on tax abatement for VEMS. Before this process starts, I'm going to recuse myself from the meeting and turn the meeting over to Mr. Bruno to run for the time being. I am now a member of the VEMS Board of Directors, so so I cannot take part in this discussion.
Okay,
Go for it, Bruno.
all right. So what we have up next is discussion and take possible action on the tax abatement for VEMS. As you can see, we have some handouts here. We have a letter from Robert Patinella, the Executive Director and Chief Valley of, and the Chief of the Valley EMS. There's also a letter from the Assessor's Office signed by Joseph Kusiak. You guys want to take a couple of seconds to refresh your memories about it? And then we'll have Richard Paterla chime in.
I'm happy to do so. The assessor is charged statutorily with determining whether or not taxpayers who claim exemptions under 12-81 should be granted those exemptions. Then sought to be classified as exempt for real property and personal property tax purposes. The assessor determined, and that doesn't mean you're 501c3. You can have 501c3s that the assessor determines should be taxed for realty and personal purposes. There's a well-developed body of case law that lists a whole bunch of different factors that the assessor has to consider in making a determination as to whether an entity is properly exempt from municipal taxation. In this case, it is my understanding that the assessor, when you see the letter, he determined that in his view, them to not meet all of those factors and should not be classified as exempt. It's my understanding they then reached out to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of obtaining a tax abatement. Now that sounds good, but there's a particular problem with that. You have absolutely no statutory authority to grant such an abatement. Statutes like the last one, 1265B, a specific purpose, fixed for a period of time. It isn't to pick up this particular sort of thing. There are other statutes that allow abatements, specific types of abatements in specific instances. No statute authorizes the legislative body of the town to do this. Their remedy, and I think it should be communicated to them as Mr. Kusiak did, is to take an appeal, to go through the Board of Assessment appeal process, take the appeal. Sometimes we're going to talk about Sanka in a minute. When we come to Sanka, you will see that the assessor made a similar decision with respect to Sanka, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago. And guess what? The Board of Assessment Appeals overruled him in that case. So, I mean, that's the process. And then there's an appellate remedy after that, the state superior court. That's why we have a well-developed body of case law in this particular area. So as much as anybody on this board may feel that them should be given an exemption, in the first instance, it was hard to say is, to the top legislative body and to the first selectman, you have no authority in this area. It's the assessor, the Board of Assessment Appeals, and the superior court.
So we basically have no standing to make such a decision. That's that.
For that
I mean,
order in
but
Sanka.
I understand why they reached out to you, because when people have issues, they're used to going to this one. This is a common thing. But in this case, he wrote it, 12-111, he actually appealed to the Board of Assessment.
We take no action.
There's no action.
So it'd be, same thing for.
All right, thank you, Al.
Motion
Sorry
for
for
that?
putting you on. No.
No.
No action.
You're taking a Sanka now, please the exact same answer on Sanka. Sanka's factually different. I mean, you know, you can run through all the factors that the assessor did, but it's really his judgment after he weighs them all. It's not for all of us here. And it's up to, there's an issue with whether they file a quadrennial report that's required in order to continue. He determined they weren't exempt. Board of Assessment Appeals overruled them. They didn't file the necessary paperwork down the road because they weren't aware they had to keep filing. So the assessor went back to his original opinion. So it says dials him back again. They've got to go back to, and it's 12-111, back to the Board of Assessment Appeals.
The proper
It's not
appellate
for-
appeals
not-
process,
Yep, not for this body.
under statute, yep.
So tomorrow I'll send letters to both VEMS and to Sanka, informing them of the process and what they need to do. Perfect. Okay, item number, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, I didn't put you on the
I'm
spot.
sorry. You put me on the
Rich and I
spot.
determined
It's
that
fine.
this morning, that I could not
Yeah, it's fine.
get involved in that. Item number 17, discussion, take possible action on removal of Inland Wetlands Commissioner member. In your packets, you have a letter from Steve Plotkin. To me, it says, "Dear Mr. Miller, according to the Charter of the Town of Seymour, Section 9.3, an appointed member of the Town Board or Commission may be removed if that person has missed 3 or more consecutive regularly scheduled meetings. Kevin Steinis and Dave McAndrew, both appointed commissioners of the Inland Wetlands Commission, have missed 3 or more such meetings. The Inland Wetlands Commission requests that these commissioners be removed from the commission and their seats be declared vacant by the Board of Selectmen. Sincerely yours, Steve Plotkins," and it's dated 12/29/2014. Rich?
Okay, Chairman Plotkin, it's probably a typo, he says section 9.3, it's not 9.3, it's section 9.4 of the charter. Connecticut General Statute 22A 42C says that a municipality has, by ordinance, can establish the method of selection and removal and the manner for filling vacancies of boards and commissions, in connection with inland wetlands agencies, which is what this is. You in fact do have a process in your charter for removing appointed officials. It's in section 9.4. It provides that where they miss 3 particular meetings, he's correct on the substance of his letter. However, you have to give the individuals under 9.4, you have to give the individuals affected by such a removal process the opportunity to appear and be heard at a hearing before the Board of Selectmen. Such a removal shall require an affirmative vote of 5 members of the board. So that's the process. So with respect to the individuals, Dennis and McAndrew, who are cited in the chairman's letter, it would be incumbent upon this board to give them notice and invite them to attend to show cause why they should not be removed in accordance with section 9.4 of the Seymour Charter. And I'll be happy to assist you in this respect. Mr. First Selectman.
So is proper procedure tomorrow for us to send letters to Mr. Steinis and Mr. McAndrew, ask them to appear before this board at our next meeting?
Yeah, for a specific purpose, and I can work with you and Lori to get the language.
I mean, if we need to send them to the addresses that we have on record, correct?
Yeah, unless you're aware that, the idea is to really make sure you give them notice, that public officials are gonna be removed, perhaps. Unless there could be, there may be cause why they haven't done that, because they were, not inconceivable, but in life, may have interfered with that. And you folks may decide they're not going to interfere. But in any event, you, wanna make, if you're aware that one of them moved to a different address, then you should send it to the address that they're at.
What if we can't find it?
That's interesting.
You publish it in paper?
Wow,
Is my understanding one of them moved out of state
out of state.
to Maine. That's my
Being a
understanding.
wetlands commissioner who moved out of town and is no longer an elector of the town of Seymour,
Correct.
then that's probably a vacancy, which pretty good sound down on that.
Okay. Okay. Now, is it, should it be our next meeting, or is that not enough time?
Seymour's- It's not a tiny town, but it's usually if somebody moves
Well,
from
yeah.
one side of town to the other, you know where.
Yeah, we can eventually track them down. Now, our next meeting is the 20th, and then after that, February 3rd. Is it okay if we say by February 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Sounds good.
Send the letters out
Plenty of notice.
tomorrow?
You could also ask the Postal Service for verification of a change of address as well.
Yeah, well, I was more concerned as to
Yeah, I
where
mean,
he
if
is.
if you know for sure that that person moved, and you
Yeah.
want proof that they moved, they don't necessarily have to give you an address, just verification that the person has moved from the address that you had.
Ooh, see? You picked something up after all those years, huh?
At least you could do that 10 years ago.
They work for the post office. That's right.
They might have changed the rules in 10 years.
Okay, so, all
Homeland Security may have changed it. Who knows?
right, so at this point, we'll take no action. Rory and I will, well, let me rephrase, Rory will create those letters, have them approved by Rich, and we'll get those out in the next day or two. Okay. Item number 18, discussion, take possible action on confirming a resolution for Condot Rimmon Street project. Okay, there's a couple things in your packet. One is the resolution that will be, that we will take action on and will be signed off by Susan DeBarber, our town clerk, tomorrow. The other is a letter from myself to Mr. Hugh Hayward, who's the principal engineer, and I'll read the letter and then we'll go from there. It says, Mr. Hayward, this letter is to inform you that there was, a public informational meeting held on Monday, December 8th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Norma Drummer Room at Seymour Town Hall regarding State Project 124-0169. There was no opposition to the project, nor was any received in the 2-week comment period that followed. Furthermore, at the Board of Selectmen meeting on January 6, 2015, the Board of Selectmen passed the attached resolution in support of the project and is requesting the project be allowed to proceed to the final design phase. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you, Kurt Miller. So I will read the resolution. Resolved that the Town of Seymour, through its Board of Selectmen, does acknowledge that a public information meeting was conducted by the town engineer Jim Galligan of Nafis and Young Engineers Incorporated and consulting project engineers DeCarlo and Dahl on Monday, December 8, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Norma Drummer Room at Seymour Town Hall, and after consideration of input received, does support the advancement of design and subsequent construction of the reconstruction of Rimmon Street, otherwise identified as State Project 124-0169, and is hereby approved. Can I have a motion to accept the resolution as presented?
Second.
Motion by Len, a second by Paul. Is there any discussion? Just under discussion, I just want the board to know that I very strongly worded a response to DOT with regards to my disgust at how long this project is taking. The fact that the town of Seymour can vote on the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November on a $5 million bond issue, and we will break ground at some point the middle of March, the beginning of April, on $5 million worth of roads. And the state of Connecticut is now on year 4 on one $2 million project. It's just mind-boggling to me. This project was supposed to have broken ground last year. I was assured that it was going to break ground this spring. Now, they are not even going to go out to bid until September of 2015, which will push the work into the spring of 2016.
When I asked for the project
Not
to
a
be
loss
put
of
in,
words.
they told me possibly 2011, definitely 2012.
Yeah, it's incredible, because what'll happen is, DeCarlo and Dahl got the information from the residents that came to the meeting. They've sent some plans up to DOT. Those plans will now sit at DOT for 2, 3, 4 weeks. They'll make comments, send them back to DeCarlo and Dahl, who will immediately turn them around, back up to the state for approval, and the state will sit on them again for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and then they'll have to get permission to go out to bid, the whole 9 yards. So, as much as we push, it will not get done this year, unfortunately. So, but I strongly worded that in my response to them. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Rich, just a quick question. Item number 19, it's not on here, but I'd like to take the board into executive session. Do I need to add it to the agenda, or because executive session is on there, just state the reasons why we're going in? Okay. Item number 19, executive session. I'd like to discuss the Seymour Police Union contract. In this conversation, I would like to invite Town Council Richard Baturla. Can I have a motion to go into executive session at 8:06 p.m.?
So moved.
Motion by Al, second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0.